What would you do if the empire that destroyed your home world was about to learn that mercy was never humanity's weakness, it was their warning? Kyra Valen stood on the bridge of the UE's Defiance, her platinum-silver hair cascading over the shoulders of her fitted tactical uniform, her pointed ears catching every whisper of fear that rippled through the Imperial communication channels they had intercepted. Her luminescent skin, barely distinguishable from a human's except for that faint ethereal glow, seemed to pulse with the tension that filled the command deck. Behind her, holographic displays showed the formation of 200 human warships, their hulls scarred from previous battles, their engines burning with the fury of a species that had been pushed afar. She pressed her palm against the transmission console, her delicate features hardening into something that made her crew stand straighter. "You struck Earth first," she said, her voice carrying the weight of 8 billion lives lost in the initial bombardment. "Now we are coming for you." The channel went silent. She could feel the fear traveling through subspace, could imagine the Kaelthar Dominion commanders scrambling to understand how their primitive target had not only survived, but had built an armada capable of threatening their very existence. And standing beside her, his calloused hand finding hers in that brief moment before chaos, was Marcus Cole, the man who had taught her that humanity's greatest weapon was something the Dominion could never understand: hope. 12 years earlier, Kyra had been Lieutenant Valen of the Kaelthar Observation Corps, assigned to document humanity's extinction for the Dominion archives. She remembered the cold efficiency of the briefing. Earth was a threat-level assessment, nothing more. A species that had developed nuclear capabilities and was on the verge of interstellar travel. Standard protocol dictated elimination before they could become competition. She had watched from her observation vessel as the bombardment began, recording the systematic destruction of cities, the vaporization of coastlines, the burning of forests that had taken millennia to grow. She had felt nothing. She was trained to feel nothing. But then her ship was struck by debris from a human nuclear counterattack, and she found herself plummeting toward the burning surface of a world that should have been dead. Her escape pod crashed in what remained of a place humans called Montana. The sky was choked with ash, the air thick with radiation, and her biosuit was failing. She had maybe 6 hours before the toxins killed her. That was when she heard the footsteps. Marcus Cole emerged from the smoke like a ghost, his face covered in soot, his military uniform torn and bloodied. He was carrying a young girl on his back, his niece, she would later learn, and he had every reason to leave the alien who had just helped destroy his world to die in the wreckage. Instead, he stopped. He looked at her with eyes that held more pain than she had ever seen in any being, and he said 4 words that would reshape the galaxy. "Can you still walk?" She had stared at him, unable to comprehend the question. She was the enemy. Her people had murdered his family, his friends, his entire civilization. And yet he extended his hand to her, not with forgiveness that would come much later, but with something more fundamental. He saw her as a person, not a target. "Why?" she had whispered, her translator, struggling with the simple word. He pulled her to her feet, steadying her when she stumbled. "Because becoming what you are isn't winning. It's losing everything that matters." She had stumbled alongside him through the radioactive wasteland, watching as humanity refused to die. In underground bunkers and hidden mountain bases, survivors organized themselves with a speed and determination that defied everything she had been taught about lesser species. Engineers repurposed agricultural equipment into weapons. Teachers became tactical strategists. Children carried messages through tunnels too small for adult fighters. And Marcus, who had been a sergeant before the attack, became something more: a symbol. He never stopped moving, never stopped believing that humanity could find a way to survive. He shared his rations with her even when food was scarce. He protected her from survivors who saw her pointed ears and wanted revenge. He taught her to see humans not as statistical data points, but as individuals with dreams, fears, and an inexhaustible capacity for love. "You're supposed to hate me," she told him one night as they huddled in a collapsed library, surrounded by burned books that represented centuries of human thought. "I do," he admitted, and the honesty struck her harder than any weapon could have. "Every day I wake up and I hate what you represent. But you're not the Dominion, Kyra. You're just someone who got caught in the machine. The question is, what are you going to do now that you're free of it?" That night, she made a choice that would define the rest of her life. She shared everything she knew about Dominion military strategy, their weaknesses, their blind spots. She helped humanity understand that their enemies were not invincible, they were complacent. The Dominion had conquered 47 species, and not one had ever fought back after the initial bombardment. They didn't know how to handle a species that kept getting up after being knocked down. The years that followed were brutal. Humanity fought a guerrilla war from the ashes of their world, using Kyra's intelligence to target supply lines and isolate Dominion occupation forces. She watched Marcus evolve from a grieving soldier into a legendary commander, his tactical brilliance matched only by his refusal to abandon anyone, even her. The first time he called her a friend, she cried. She didn't know her species could cry, but she learned that day. The first time he looked at her across a strategic planning table and smiled, genuinely smiled, not because of a victory, but simply because she was there. She felt something shift in her chest, a warmth that had no name in the Kaelthar language. The Dominion had taught her that emotions were inefficiencies to be suppressed. Humanity taught her they were the very things worth fighting for. By the 5th year, the survivors had reverse-engineered enough Dominion technology to build their first warship. By the 8th year, they had a fleet. By the 10th year, Kyra had earned a rank that no alien had ever held in human military history, General of the Reclamation Forces. There were those who protested, who called her a traitor, collaborating with the enemy, but Marcus stood beside her at every tribunal, every hearing, every whispered accusation. She has bled more for this world than most of you, he declared to the United Survivor Council. She has given us the means to take back our future. If that makes her a traitor to her own kind, then I pray we all have the courage to be such traitors when it matters. Now, standing on the bridge of the Defiance, Kyra felt the weight of those 12 years pressing against her shoulders. The fleet was approaching Kaelthar Prime, the heart of the Dominion, and every sensor reading confirmed what she had feared. The enemy had mobilized their entire armada, thousands of ships against their 200. The mathematics of extinction that the Dominion loved to cite. They outnumber us 15 to 1, her tactical officer reported, his voice steady despite the impossible odds. Kyra turned to face her crew, humans who had chosen to follow an alien into the heart of enemy territory. The Dominion believes in mathematics, she said, loud enough for every officer to hear. They calculate threat levels and probability matrices and resource allocations. They have conquered 47 species using those calculations. She paused, letting the silence build. They have never faced a species that counts differently, a species that measures victory not in survival percentages, but in principles defended, a species that will sacrifice everything not to win, but to stand for what they believe. The crew straightened. She could see it in their eyes, that inexplicable human fire that had kept them alive in irradiated bunkers, that had turned farmers into soldiers and children into heroes. Today, we do not fight for revenge, she continued. We fight so that no other world suffers what Earth suffered. We fight so that the next species the Dominion targets will know that someone stood up, that someone said no. Marcus stepped forward, his hand finding hers again. His hair had grayed at the temples, his face carried more scars than she could count, but his eyes, those fierce, compassionate eyes, were exactly the same as the day he had pulled her from the wreckage. Together? He asked, the same way he asked every morning when he brought her coffee. Every evening when they reviewed battle plans, every quiet moment when words felt insufficient. Together, she confirmed, the battle began like mathematics predicted, disastrously. Dominion ships swarmed their fleet, their superior numbers overwhelming human defenses. Kyra watched as vessels exploded, as distress calls flooded the channels, as the Empire's cold efficiency did exactly what it had always done. For one terrible moment, she wondered if this had all been for nothing. If humanity's defiance was simply a beautiful tragedy, a footnote in Dominion archives, then Marcus did something that made no tactical sense whatsoever. He ordered the Defiance to advance directly into the heart of the enemy formation, not to attack, but to transmit. Every channel, every frequency, every communication method they could access, he broadcast the story. Images of Earth before the attack, children playing, cities gleaming, art and music and laughter. Images of the destruction, the fireballs, the ash, the silence. And then images of what came after. The survivors rebuilding. The first flowers blooming in irradiated soil. Humanity's refusal to surrender. This is what you tried to destroy. Marcus's voice rang across subspace, reaching not just the Dominion military, but their civilian populations, their conquered subjects, their entire empire. This is what you could not kill. And this is what we are bringing to your doorstep, not extinction, but truth. The truth that your empire is built on lies. The truth that the species you conquered were not weak. They were alone. But humanity? Humanity brought friends. At that moment, the flanks of the battlefield lit up with new arrivals. Ships from the Varendi Collective, survivors of Dominion conquest who had been in hiding for centuries. Vessels from the Marathi Union, freed by human special forces 3 years earlier. A dozen species, united for the first time in galactic history, all bearing the same message: we remember what you did, and we stand with those who fight back. The Dominion formation broke. Not because they were outmatched mathematically, they still held the advantage, but because their commanders had never faced an enemy that inspired others. Their entire doctrine was based on isolation and despair, and humanity had just shattered both. Kyra commanded the final assault, her voice steady as she directed the combined fleet through enemy lines. She thought of every human who had died in the initial attack, every child who had never grown up, every dream that had been vaporized in an instant. She thought of Marcus carrying his niece through the smoke, choosing compassion over hatred when hatred would have been justified. She thought of herself, the observer who had become the champion, the enemy who had become family. The Dominion flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Mandate, attempted to retreat, but Kyra had anticipated this. All vessels converge on these coordinates, she ordered. We're not destroying that ship. We're capturing it. Marcus looked at her with surprise. The council wanted the High Dominarch dead. The council wanted justice, Kyra corrected. But there's something more important than killing him. There's making him face what he's done. There's putting him before a galactic tribunal where every species he's wronged can speak. That's not mercy, that's accountability. And it's something the Dominion has never understood. The capture took 3 hours and cost more lives than Kyra wanted to count. But when the High Dominarch, a towering figure with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that had never shown warmth, was brought before her, she finally understood why Marcus had saved her all those years ago. Power was not in destruction. Power was in choice. The choice to be different from your enemy, even when they deserved no such consideration. The war's end didn't come with celebration. It came with exhaustion, with grief, with the slow realization that rebuilding would take generations. Earth was still healing. It would never fully recover. Billions were still dead. The trauma of survival had left scars on every human psyche. But as Kyra stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching the distant light of Earth's sun, she felt something that had been foreign to her entire existence before 12 years ago: peace. Marcus found her there, as he always did. He didn't speak immediately. He had learned that she sometimes needed silence, that her mind processed the universe differently than his. But eventually, he moved to stand beside her, their shoulders almost touching. The council wants to offer you citizenship, he said. Full status. Earth can be your home now officially. She considered this. And what do you want? He turned to look at her, and in his eyes, she saw everything: the pain of loss, the pride of survival, the affection that had grown from respect into something deeper over 12 years of shared struggle. I want you to do what makes you happy. For the first time in your life, Kyra, you get to choose without a mission or a duty or a war. Just what you want. She reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his, a gesture she had learned from him, a gesture that meant more than any words in either of their languages. I want to see Earth bloom again. I want to help build schools and hospitals and libraries. I want to watch humans create new art and new music and new stories. She paused, her luminescent skin flushing slightly warmer. And I want to do all of that with you, if you'll have me. His smile was like sunrise after nuclear winter, slow, warm, and impossibly hopeful. Kyra Valen, I've been waiting 12 years for you to figure that out. She laughed, a sound that still surprised her every time it emerged. Your species is not subtle, Marcus Cole. I knew how you felt. I simply needed time to understand what I felt in return. And now I understand that home is not a planet, or a species, or a set of coordinates. Home is standing beside someone who sees you, truly sees you, and chooses to stay anyway. You taught me that on the worst day of both our lives. And I have spent every day since learning how profound that lesson was. The ceremony was small, just their closest friends and the council members who had once questioned her loyalty. Kyra wore a dress that blended human fashion with Kaelthar tradition, her platinum hair woven with earth flowers and crystals from her homeworld. Marcus wore his dress uniform, every medal earned through sacrifice, every ribbon representing a battle survived. When they exchanged vows, she spoke in both languages, Kaelthar for what she had been, English for what she had become. I was born to observe and classify, to reduce life to data points, she said, her voice carrying across the small gathering. You taught me that some things cannot be measured. Courage cannot be quantified. Love cannot be calculated. Hope cannot be archived. These are the things that make humanity terrifying to empires and beautiful to the universe. And these are the things I choose to spend my life protecting. Alongside the man who showed me they existed, Marcus's response was simpler, as human vows often were, but no less powerful. Kyra, you crash-landed into the worst moment of my life, and somehow, you became the best part of what came after. I don't care where you were born or what you were told to believe. I only care that you're here now, choosing this life with me. For whatever time we have left, for whatever challenges we face, I choose you. Every single day, I choose you. The applause that followed was genuine, the tears unashamed. And as Kyra looked around at the humans who had accepted her, the allies who had joined their cause, and the man who had seen past everything she was supposed to be, she finally understood the full meaning of the words she had spoken to the Dominion. You struck Earth first, she had warned them. But what she had really been saying was something far more fundamental. You awakened something that will change the galaxy forever. You taught humanity that they are not alone, that there are others who can see their value, that their compassion is not weakness, but strength. And now that lesson will spread to every world, every species, every corner of existence. Not through conquest, but through example. Not through fear, but through hope. Years later, when historians from 100 worlds compiled the records of the Human Reclamation War, they would debate the tactics, analyze the strategies, and study the technological innovations that had allowed a devastated species to defeat an interstellar empire. But the story that resonated most, the one that children learned and elders repeated, was not about fleets or battles or political maneuvering. It was about a soldier who extended his hand to an enemy in a burning wasteland, and the woman who took that hand and helped him rebuild the stars. It was about the moment when revenge was possible, but justice was chosen, when hatred was justified but compassion was offered, when extinction seemed inevitable, but hope refused to die. And at the center of every version of that story was a single truth, spoken first as a warning and remembered forever as a promise. You struck Earth first. Now we are coming for you. Not with destruction, though destruction was delivered when necessary. Not with vengeance, though vengeance burned in every human heart. But with something far more dangerous to empires built on isolation and fear, with the proof that no one has to face the darkness alone. Kyra Cole, as she was eventually known, lived to see Earth's forests regrow, its cities rebuild, its children play in sunlight that no longer carried the ash of genocide. She lived to see her species, both of them, now forge a galactic alliance based not on dominion but on mutual protection. And she lived to understand, in the quiet moments with Marcus, watching alien stars from their garden on a healed planet, that the universe is not defined by those who destroy, but by those who choose, against all odds and all logic, to rebuild. That was the lesson humanity taught the galaxy. That was the legacy of the woman who became their general. And that was the story that would echo through civilizations for millennia to come, not of an empire's fall, but of a species' rise, and the alien who believed in them when they had every reason to believe in nothing at all.